And I'll introduce you guys in just a second, but I wanted to give a little background on sort of where this came about and why we decided to do this. Last year we did, and I think maybe there were a few of you here, for the last startup. It was sort of a competition last year, but it really wasn't. We weren't really sure what to do with it. And it kind of came out of that we wanted to share the experience of some people who have actually started companies and you know, give a little bit more insight into what to do when you're starting a company. So really the focus of this panel is sort of, you know, some of the considerations you should take into place as you're starting a company and you know, questions that might come up. Well, let's go ahead and kick it off now. Just for the folks who just came in, I gave a little bit of background on sort of where this came from. And last year's startup events were really sort of not well defined, and we kind of had a lot of different ideas coming out of that about what to do with the startup side of Source. And so one of the things, it was a panel where folks who have already started companies or in the process of starting companies could come and share their experiences. So without further ado, I'll introduce Raffael, Marty, and we'll just go down the line and kind of give a little bit of background on, you know, where you're coming from.
All right, hello everybody. I started a company last year. We incorporated in September. The company is called Langlois. I'm breaking out a little bit of this, out of the security space with that company, but it's basically a SaaS-based offering for log management. I have worked in this space for quite a while. I was at ArcSight before and at Splunk, so I kind of knew what space I'm going into, so it's not completely new for me. Yeah, we took a round of investment last December, a very small investment so that we can actually live. We're actually, right now, we had a term sheet on the table, and hopefully by the end of the week that's going to be signed and we're going to get some more money. And then with that, hopefully grow the company quite a bit. I think I'll leave it at that, so it gives you kind of an idea what I do.
Okay. Rob, Cheyne?
My name is Rob Cheyne. So I began my career hacking VCRs with soldering irons on the Commodore Amiga, which was a lot of fun. Doing a lot of software development, and that shifted into systems integration and eventually to security. So I've been doing just security for the past 12 years. I've worked for...
Anton, I told you there's no ED there.
So these two have worked together for quite a while.
We've clearly worked together for a while. I'm going to punch you in a second. So over the last 12 years, I worked for 4 different security startups, the most notable of which is AtStake. I was one of the founding members of AtStake and helped develop some of the methodologies for how to do architecture and design reviews that we used all throughout the company. Also did code reviews and pen tests, and, you know, pretty much a little bit of everything that could be done there, including, I think I interviewed about half the company. I wrote LC4, version of LoftCrack, and I also worked on a project called UDS, which was Undeveloper Studio, which became SAFE, which is Security Architecture Framework, which became Veracode. So I worked on that team for a year, and then eventually started training, and the rest was history. At that point, I realized that I could fix the problem before it happened. So after doing the teaching thing for a few years, I decided to spin off my own company, and Safelight Security Advisors is me. So you see that on the badges. And I think that's enough to start.
Okay, my name's Paul Davis. I've had 4 companies over the years. Software House in the UK, which was also a service provider before service providers existed. And security consulting recently, and another security consulting company, and another one. So I suppose I'm starting another few. And some have been successful, some have been a journey, but don't regret it. But definitely every time, lessons learned about yourself and about how you do business.
My name is Eugene Kuznetsov. About 10 years ago, I started a company called DataPower that was a pioneer in the application-oriented networking space, and one of our most successful products was an XML security gateway. The company was acquired by IBM. I stayed at IBM for a couple of years as an executive, and one of my roles there was actually to look at startups that were coming in, looking to partner with Big Blue or looking to be acquired. So it was very interesting to, first be in a small company as a founder of a startup, trying to partner with big companies, raising quite a bit of venture capital, and then later being on the inside and watching how the big company executives think about startups that are coming in the door. And then since leaving IBM, I've been involved as an advisor or board member with a number of companies, probably half to two-thirds of them security companies, as well as being co-founder of an online privacy startup.
Okay, okay. And so with that, how many folks in the room have started a company or thinking about starting a company by a show of hands? Okay, so there's quite a few people here who either have, and those of you who have already? A few? Less, yeah. So I guess, you know, at some point you have to decide, you know, that you're going to actually go ahead and start the company. And so, you know, what is that thought process in terms of, you know, do you take your prior work or is it some idea that, you know, you're looking for? Or, you know, where did Safelight Security Advisors come from? I mean,
so for me it was easy because I had been doing the training thing for a while. I knew that how the business model worked. I really understood the intricacies of doing, you know, showing up on site and teaching and getting paid for that. We shifted the model a little bit because I realized that didn't scale very well. So the thought process was, all right, well, the service thing is cool, but I want something that scales. So we decided to do we have e-learning products. So we built e-learning products because those you can just sell a number of them and just you collect a check, and that's fantastic because that scales really well. So we kind of envisioned that, and then just kind of went from there. As far as the stepping off process, it was really scary at first because that was the first one I'd started from scratch, where I actually had to go out and you figure out how do you incorporate this thing and how do you do all the things that are involved in getting it going. And to me, that the best analogy I can come up with, it's like that scene in Indiana Jones where he had to like step off the cliff and close his eyes and just hope he didn't fall and plummet to his death. It's kind of like that, and you know, you just take it one step at a time and you just go from there.
Hey, Raffi, you're in the process of really starting Langlois now. You know, what was that process like?
It was definitely incredibly scary in the beginning, but I had a lot of help, which was my previous employer laid me off. So it was actually fairly easy. I was thinking about starting my own thing like a year and a half ago. I started more kind of coming up with the concept, started writing a business plan. I didn't really know what business plan is back then, but you do some internet searching and Googling and you find some templates and you figure out, oh, it's interesting, these questions that come up. And I had about 50% done when the actual layoff happened, and I kind of started talking to my company, like, where is this going? What's my role in 6 months? And they're like, well, where do you want to be? And I'm like, well, I want to start a company at some point. So when the layoffs happened, they were like, well, it's time for you to go. We would like to help you, but this is really kind of the push over the cliffs that you had to take yourself was kind of done for me. And it was awesome. That was the best thing that happened to me. I'm super happy it happened that way. It took quite a while to actually get to the point where I incorporated and actually got Langlois off the ground. I started something else first, where I wanted to build this visualization service in the cloud, and that turned out it's really hard to build. And then we kind of moved this into the direction of Langlois. So it was kind of an evolution towards this. And from there on, it's been smooth sailing so far. Keep our fingers crossed, but things have been going really well.
And so one of the biggest considerations there is money, right? You know, how are you able to do that? You know, without going bankrupt or you know, like living in a box. So one of the things we talked about prior to the panel here was, you know, do you go out and look for VC right away, or do you try and bootstrap the company like you have, Rob? And Paul, I don't know in your experience if you.
I've never gone down the VC route. Usually the companies are started because of opportunities of a pipeline of business coming in.
Sure.
It just makes sense that way.
And Eugene, with DataPower.
I had bootstrapped early on, but then eventually we ended up raising about $25, $28 million of venture capital. So
okay.
it was substantial VC money.
And so what was that process like, where you went out and started pitching it to companies, or did they come to you? Or?
Well, you know, you go and you get introductions to the right venture capitalists, and then you go have a lot of meetings. And the meetings are frustrating because you know, sometimes they have the right kind of background, especially when it comes to the security market, and sometimes they really don't. And so you can get into very lengthy discussions with very little content.
It's kind of like dating, but more painful.
Yeah, the people, yeah, anyway. Let's just not go there. But that said, it actually is valuable. I mean, the discipline of going into meetings time and time again with smart, knowledgeable business people and having to